The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows along the deserted corridor of Base 7. Leon dragged his feet, exhaustion seeping through every fiber of his being after a 14-hour drone repair shift. The sterile smell of metal and antiseptic filled his nostrils, a scent he'd grown accustomed to during the 3 years he'd been stationed at this interplanetary outpost. All he wanted was his bed. His shoulders slumped as he approached his quarters, fumbling with his ID card in the dim light. The corridor was eerily quiet at this hour. Most engineers and technicians were either on night shift or sound asleep. Leon yawned, swiping his card against the security panel. The door hissed open halfway, then abruptly stopped with a mechanical whine. Leon frowned, pushing against it with his shoulder. Something was jamming it. "What the?" he muttered, crouching down to examine the obstruction. In the gap between the door and frame, something dark and furry was wedged tightly. He reached out, touching what appeared to be a strip of sleek black fur. The moment his fingers made contact, the obstruction twitched violently, accompanied by a sharp, muffled hiss from the other side. "Don't pull too hard, or I'll make sounds," a feminine voice whispered urgently from beyond the door. "My tail's stuck in the door, you idiot." Leon froze, heart pounding suddenly. A tail? That could only mean one thing. A Beastwoman, one of the alien species that shared the base with humans, but were strictly segregated to their own quarters after curfew. What was one doing here in the human residential sector at this hour? "Who's there?" Leon whispered, glancing nervously down the corridor. If security caught him with a Beastwoman at his door after curfew, he'd face severe disciplinary action at minimum. "Does it matter? Just help me get my tail free," the voice pleaded with an edge of panic. "Someone's coming. I can hear them." Leon hesitated only for a second before making a decision he'd probably regret. He carefully worked the door mechanism, creating just enough space to release the trapped appendage. The moment it was free, a slender figure slipped through the gap and into his quarters with remarkable agility. Standing before him in the dim light of his room was a Beastwoman, tall, lean, with feline features that glowed with a soft bioluminescence in the darkness. Her eyes, amber with vertical pupils, regarded him with a mixture of wariness and relief. The freed tail, long, covered in sleek black fur, and ending in a tuft, swished nervously behind her. "Thanks," she said, rubbing her tail. "That hurt." Leon's mouth went dry. "You shouldn't be here. This is the human sector. If security finds you—" "They won't," she interrupted, moving further into his room, scanning it with keen eyes. "Unless you call them." Leon closed the door hastily, leaning against it. "I should, you know. What are you doing here? Who are you?" The Beastwoman's ears, pointed and covered in the same sleek black fur as her tail, twitched as she assessed him. She wore a form-fitting utility suit common among the maintenance crews, though hers had been modified to accommodate her tail. "My name is Rera," she said finally, "and I'm retrieving something that was stolen from my people." Leon ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Look, I don't want any trouble. Whatever you're doing, just do elsewhere. If they find you here, we'll both be in detention cells by morning." Rera's tail flicked irritably. "I didn't plan to get my tail stuck in a human's door, believe me. But since I'm here—" She moved closer, her movements fluid and predatory. "You're a technician, right? Access badge level 4. Leon instinctively backed up. "How did you—" "Your uniform. The patch." She nodded toward his shoulder. "I need to access the main storage facility. Just for 10 minutes. "Are you insane?" Leon hissed. "That's a restricted military area. Even I don't have clearance for certain sections." A smile played across Rera's feline features. "But you have more access than I do. Look, this isn't just about me. A data shard was stolen from our sector. It contains evidence of corruption that affects both humans and beast folk." Leon shook his head vigorously. "Not my problem. I fix drones, I do my job, I keep to myself. Politics isn't my thing." Rera's ears flattened against her head, a sign of frustration Leon recognized from the mandatory cross-species communication training. "Fine. Then I'll leave and find another way. But if Commander Draven sells that data shard to space pirates by dawn, the consequences will be on your conscience too." The name made Leon pause. Commander Draven, the stern-faced, perpetually dissatisfied officer who seemed to take special pleasure in making the engineers' lives miserable. Everyone knew Draven played favorites and bent rules, but corruption? That was a serious accusation. Before Leon could respond, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Security patrol. Hide, he whispered urgently, pointing to the small bathroom. Rhea slipped inside, just as the footsteps grew louder. Leon's heart hammered against his ribs as he heard the patrol stop outside his door. A moment passed, then another. Finally, the footsteps continued down the corridor, fading gradually. When Rhea emerged, her expression was grave. I need that data shard before dawn. If Draven completes the transaction, hundreds of coordinates for undefended colonies will be in the hands of raiders. My people will suffer first. We're always the expendable ones in human calculations. Leon sank onto his bed, mind racing. He'd always played it safe, kept his head down, avoided complications. But the thought of Draven selling out innocent people, human or beast folk, made his stomach churn. How do I know you're telling the truth? He asked, even as he recognized he was already considering helping her. Rhea's eyes locked with his. You don't. But if I'm lying, all you lose is a night's sleep. If I'm telling the truth, and you do nothing. She let the implication hang in the air. Leon closed his eyes briefly. I'm going to regret this, aren't I? Rhea's tail swished with what might have been relief. Probably. But sometimes regret is better than the alternative. As if to punctuate her words, an announcement crackled over the base-wide intercom. Attention, all personnel. Security breach in Sector 7. Unauthorized movement detected. All units respond. Repeat. All units respond. Leon and Rhea exchanged glances, knowing their time had just become much more limited. First light is in 6 hours, Rhea whispered. That's all the time we have. The artificial dawn of Base 7 was approaching rapidly as Leon and Rhea huddled over a tablet in his cramped quarters. Outside, the sound of security teams moving through the corridors had finally subsided, though periodic announcements still warned of continued vigilance. Here's what we know, Leon said, fingers tracing the base schematic he'd pulled up on his tablet. His voice was low, still unable to believe he was actually doing this. The military storage facility is here for levels down. Security is tight, biometric scanners, motion sensors, arm guards. Rhea leaned closer, her tail swishing thoughtfully behind her. And the data shard? If Draven has something valuable to hide, it would be in the high-security data vault, Leon replied, zooming in on a section of the schematic. But getting there, he trailed off, shaking his head. We'll get there, Rhea said with more confidence than Leon felt. You know the systems. I know how to move without being seen. Leon eyed her skeptically. Is that how you ended up with your tail stuck in my door? Rhea's ears flattened momentarily before perking up again. A minor setback. I was distracted. By what? By trying to avoid being shot, she retorted. Not all of us have the luxury of walking openly through the corridors. Leon had the grace to look contrite. The beast folk had always been treated with suspicion on Base 7. Despite the official rhetoric about cooperation between species, the reality was starkly different. Segregated living quarters, restricted movement, limited access to facilities, all under the guise of security protocols. Sorry, he mumbled. So what's the plan? Rhea stood, stretching her lithe body in a distinctly feline manner. I need to understand what we're up against. Tell me about Draven. Leon grimaced. Commander Draven runs the security division with an iron fist. Ex-military, decorated combat veteran, reputation for being ruthlessly efficient. He's not well-liked, but he's respected, or feared, more accurately. And the security protocols around the storage facility? 3 checkpoints. First is just ID verification. I can get us through that with my technician badge. Second requires higher clearance, but I might be able to spoof the system temporarily with my maintenance codes. The third, he hesitated. The third is the problem. Retinal scan, matched against the central database. Rhea's tail twitched with agitation. I assume my retinal pattern isn't in your system. Worse, Leon said. It would trigger an alarm. Beast folk aren't authorized for the data vault under any circumstances. Rhea paced the small room, her movements fluid despite the confined space. There must be a way. Maybe a service entrance? Maintenance ducts. Leon was about to shake his head when a thought struck him. Wait, there is the maintenance shaft. It bypasses the third checkpoint, meant for emergency access to the environmental systems. He adjusted the display, revealing a narrow passage running parallel to the main corridor. It's tight, but I can manage tight spaces, Rhea assured him, studying the layout. How do we access it? Panel behind the water recycling unit on level 3, Leon explained. It's not on the main schematics. Only maintenance personnel know about it. Rhea's eyes gleamed. Perfect. Now, we just need to get to level 3 without being spotted. Leon checked his watch. Shift change is in 20 minutes. Security will be at minimum staffing during the handover. If we're going to do this, that's our window. Then we move in 20, Rhea said decisively. In the meantime, tell me more about the data vault itself. What are we looking for exactly? If I had to guess, the shard will be small, probably no bigger than my thumb. Standard military-grade encryption, quantum locked. It would stand out from standard data storage units. Rhea nodded, absently rubbing her tail where it had been caught in the door. And once we have it, Leon hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know. What's your plan after getting the shard? Get it to the Interspecies Alliance Council, she replied without hesitation. They have the authority to act on the evidence, even against someone like Draven. And me? Leon asked quietly. What happens to me when this is over? Rhea's expression softened slightly. That depends on you. You could deny everything, claim I forced you to help. Or you could do what's right, regardless of the consequences, she said simply. Isn't that why you're helping me now? Before Leon could respond, a proximity alert chimed softly on his tablet. Someone was approaching his quarters. Time's up, Rhea whispered, instantly alert. We need to move. Now. Leon quickly shut down his tablet and grabbed his maintenance toolkit. He'd made his choice. There was no turning back now. The corridor outside was dimly lit for the night cycle, casting long shadows that seemed to reach for them as they moved. Leon led the way, his technician's badge displayed prominently in case they encountered anyone. Rhea followed close behind, her movements nearly silent, her senses alert for any sign of danger. They reached the elevator bank without incident, and Leon selected level 3, his heart pounding painfully in his chest. As the door slid closed, he caught Rhea studying him. What? He whispered. You're scared, she observed. But you're still doing this. Leon swallowed hard. I'm not brave, if that's what you're thinking. He struggled to find the words. I'm just tired of looking the other way. Rhea nodded, understanding in her amber eyes. Sometimes that's all bravery is, being tired of the alternative. The elevator chimed softly, announcing their arrival at level 3. As the doors opened, they found themselves face to face with a familiar figure, Technician Malik, one of Leon's colleagues. Leon. Malik's expression registered surprise. What are you doing here this late? And whose? His eyes widened as he registered Rhea's inhuman features. Leon's mind raced. Malik, I can explain. Is that a beast folk? Malik's hand moved toward his communicator. You know, they're not allowed in this section after curfew. I should report. Before you do that, Rhea interrupted smoothly, you might want to consider what Commander Draven would say if he learned you've been falsifying maintenance logs for the past 3 months. Malik froze, his face draining of color. How did you? Beast folk clean the administrative offices, Rhea said, her tail swishing confidently behind her. We see everything, including which technicians are cutting corners and logging jobs as complete when they've barely been started. Leon stared at Rhea in surprise, then quickly schooled his features when she shot him a warning glance. What do you want? Malik asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Nothing, Leon said quickly. Just look the other way for an hour. That's all. You never saw us. Malik hesitated, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he stepped aside. 1 hour. After that, I don't know anything about anything. Deal, Leon agreed, relief flooding through him. As they moved past Malik toward the maintenance section, Leon leaned closer to Rhea. Was that true? About the logs? A small smile played across her feline features. No, but humans always assume we know more than we do. It's the one advantage we have. Leon couldn't help but return her smile. Remind me never to play poker with you. They reached the water recycling unit without further incident. The maintenance panel was exactly where Leon remembered, hidden behind a section of removable wall plating. He worked quickly, disabling the alarm system before removing the panel to reveal a narrow crawl space beyond. That's smaller than I expected, he admitted, eyeing the tight passage. Rhea seemed unfazed. I'll go first. You follow. Stay close. These service tunnels can be mazes. Without waiting for a response, she slipped into the opening with remarkable agility, her tail disappearing into the darkness. Leon took a deep breath and followed, feeling distinctly less graceful as he squeezed his broader frame into the confined space. The tunnel was tight, forcing them to move on hands and knees. The air was stale, tinged with the smell of machine oil and recycled water. Leon's uniform quickly became streaked with dust and grime as they crawled through the forgotten passageway. How much further? He whispered after what felt like an eternity of crawling. According to your schematic, the access point should be just ahead, Rhea replied, her voice barely audible. There, I see it. A faint glow illuminated the passage ahead, leaking through the seams of another maintenance panel. Rhea moved toward it cautiously, her enhanced vision allowing her to navigate the darkness with ease. Leon followed, guided more by the sound of her movement than by sight. When they reached the panel, Rhea stopped abruptly. I hear voices, she whispered. Multiple guards. At least 4, possibly more. Leon's heart sank. That's not normal. There should only be 2 guards at this entrance. Draven must have increased security, Rhea concluded. He knows someone might come for the shard. Now, what? Leon asked, trying to keep the desperation from his voice. Rhea was silent for a moment, her ears twitching as she listened intently to the conversation on the other side of the panel. They're talking about a shipment, she said finally. Tomorrow at dawn. That must be when Draven plans to move the shard. So we're too late? No, Rhea said firmly. The shard is still in there. We just need to create a diversion. Leon frowned. What kind of diversion? The kind that draws security away from the vault, she replied. Are there any systems you can access from here? Something that would require immediate attention. Leon thought quickly. The fire suppression system. If I can trigger it in another section, it would draw some of the guards away. Do it, Rhea urged. Leon pulled out his tablet, connecting it to a maintenance port on the wall of the tunnel. His fingers flew over the interface, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. This is definitely going to get me fired, he muttered as he worked. Better fired than imprisoned for treason, Rhea pointed out. Not helping, Leon grunted, but there was no real annoyance in his tone. Okay, I've accessed the fire control systems. Triggering an alert in Section 5B. Now, almost immediately, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Through the panel, they could hear the guards reacting with confusion and urgency. Fire alert in Section 5B. A mechanical voice announced over the intercom. All personnel implement emergency protocols. This is not a drill. Perfect, Rhea whispered as they heard several sets of footsteps rushing away from their position. How many stayed behind? Leon checked his tablet, which was linked to the security feed. Just 1 guard at the entrance. The others are responding to the alarm. I can't handle one, Rhea said confidently. Be ready to move fast. Before Leon could protest, Rhea had eased the panel open and slipped through the gap with predatory grace. Leon scrambled after her, emerging into a brightly lit corridor just in time to see Rhea approach the remaining guard from behind. The guard never had a chance to raise the alarm. Rhea moved with stunning speed, her hand finding a pressure point on the human's neck that rendered him unconscious within seconds. She eased his limp body to the floor, quickly relieving him of his access card. Did you kill him? Leon asked, his voice higher than usual. Rhea shot him an offended look. Of course not. He'll wake up with a headache in about 20 minutes. We need to be gone by then. Leon nodded, still somewhat dazed by the efficiency of her takedown. The vault should be through these doors. The guard's card will get us in, but we'll need to be quick. Rhaera swiped the card, and the doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The data vault was larger than Leon had expected, filled with row upon row of storage units, each glowing with a soft blue light. The air was noticeably cooler, maintained at an optimal temperature for the sensitive equipment. Where would the shard be? Rhaera asked, her eyes scanning the overwhelming array of storage devices. Leon accessed a nearby terminal. If it's as valuable as you say, it would be in the high-security section. He nodded toward a sealed area at the far end of the vault. There, they moved quickly through the rows of data storage, the hum of cooling systems masking their footsteps. The fire alarm continued to blare in the distance, but they knew their time was limited. The high-security section was protected by another layer of security, a biometric scanner that required palm verification. Leon hesitated, knowing his credentials wouldn't grant him access. Now what? He whispered. Rhaera examined the scanner. These systems always have backdoors. Emergency protocols that override. Biometric requirements in case of system failure. Leon's eyes widened. You want to crash the system? Not the entire system, Rhaera clarified. Just this scanner. Can you do it? Leon bit his lip, considering. Maybe. I need to overload the power supply to this unit specifically. It would trigger a failsafe that defaults to open access. Do it, Rhaera urged, her tail swishing with nervous energy. Leon pulled tools from his kit and began working on the scanner's access panel. His fingers moved with practiced precision, despite the pressure of the situation. Almost there, he muttered. Just need to cross these circuits, and a shower of sparks erupted from the panel, followed by the satisfying click of the security door unlocking. The scanner's display went dark as the power surge disabled it temporarily. Nice work, Rhaera said appreciatively as they slipped through the now accessible door. The high-security section was smaller, containing only a few dozen storage units. These were different from the others, more heavily shielded, with advanced encryption markers visible on their interfaces. It should be here somewhere, Leon said, moving down the row of units. Look for something that doesn't match the others. They searched frantically, aware that every second increased their risk of discovery. It was Rhaera who found it. A small storage unit that glowed with a distinctive purple hue rather than the standard blue. This one, she said, pointing. The encryption signature is different. Leon examined the unit. You're right. This uses quantum lock encryption, military grade. It has to be what we're looking for. Removing the shard proved easier than anticipated. It slid free of its housing with a soft click, its surface glowing faintly in Rhaera's palm. It was small, no larger than Leon's thumb, but its importance was immeasurable. We should go, Leon urged, glancing nervously at the entrance. They'll realize the fire alarm was false soon. As if on cue, the alarms suddenly ceased, leaving an ominous silence in their wake. Then, breaking that silence, came the sound of the main vault door opening. Hide, Rhaera hissed, pulling Leon behind a row of storage units. Footsteps approached, multiple sets, moving with purpose. Then a voice Leon recognized all too well echoed through the vault. I want every inch of this facility searched, Commander Draven barked. Someone triggered that alarm deliberately, and I want to know who. Leon and Rhaera exchanged alarmed glances. Draven himself was here, which meant their escape route was cut off. They were trapped in the vault with no way out. There's another way, Leon whispered suddenly, remembering an emergency exit protocol he'd studied during his training. The ventilation system. There's an access point near the cooling units. Rhaera nodded, clutching the shard tightly as they crept along the back wall of the vault, staying hidden behind the storage units. They could hear Draven and his security team moving methodically through the facility, checking each row. They reached the ventilation access point just as the security team began searching the high-security section. Leon worked frantically to remove the grate, his hands slippery with nervous sweat. "Hurry," Rhaera urged, her ears swiveling toward the approaching footsteps. With a final twist, the grate came free. Rhaera slipped inside immediately, her slender form easily fitting through the opening. Leon followed with more difficulty, barely squeezing his shoulders through the tight space. Just as he pulled his feet into the duct, he heard Draven's voice directly below them. "The power's been tampered with here," the commander observed coldly. "In this unit, check what's stored in this purple unit." Leon froze, hardly daring to breathe as they crawled deeper into the ventilation system. Behind them, Draven's enraged shout echoed through the ducts. "The shard is gone. Lock down the entire facility. Now!" Rhaera increased her pace, navigating the labyrinthine system of ducts with unexpected familiarity. "These systems are all connected," she explained in a whisper. "Once we reach a junction, we can access multiple levels." Leon followed as best he could, the close quarters and awkward crawling making his muscles burn with exertion. They moved steadily upward, using junction points to climb to higher levels. "Where are we going?" Leon asked when they paused at a particularly large junction. "Out," Rhaera replied simply. "If Draven's locked down the facility, our only option is to leave it entirely." "Leave? But the exterior is..." "Hostile environment, I know," she interrupted, "but it's our only choice. There's an environmental monitoring station on the outer perimeter. If we can reach it, we might find transport." The thought of venturing outside the base made Leon's stomach churn with anxiety. The planet's atmosphere wasn't immediately lethal to humans, but prolonged exposure without protection was dangerous. Still, she was right. With the base locked down, there was nowhere to hide. They continued their arduous journey through the ventilation system, eventually reaching an access point that opened into a maintenance bay near the outer hull. Thankfully, the bay was deserted. All personnel had likely been called to assist with the lockdown. Rhaera dropped silently to the floor, her tail swishing as she scanned the area. Leon followed, less gracefully, his legs nearly buckling as he landed. "We need environment suits," he said, moving toward a storage locker. "The atmosphere outside is toxic without protection." The locker yielded 2 suits, standard issue for maintenance personnel who needed to work on the exterior of the base. They weren't designed for extended use, but they would have to suffice. As Leon helped Rhaera into one of the suits, adjusting it to accommodate her tail, he couldn't help but notice how tired she looked. The strain of their escape was beginning to show, even on her resilient features. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Rhaera nodded, her amber eyes meeting his. "I've come too far to fail now. My people are counting on this, even if they don't know it yet." Something in her voice, a mix of determination and vulnerability, resonated with Leon. For the first time, he fully grasped what this mission meant to her. It wasn't just about exposing corruption. It was about proving that beast folk deserve the same rights and respect as humans. "We'll make it," he promised, sealing her helmet securely. "Together," she smiled, a small, grateful gesture that transformed her feline features. Together, they finished suiting up just as the facility-wide intercom crackled to life. "Attention all personnel," Draven's voice announced, his tone icy with rage. "We have intruders in the facility. A human technician and a beast folk female have stolen classified material. They are to be considered armed and extremely dangerous. Shoot on sight. Repeat, shoot on sight." "Well, that's not good," Leon muttered, checking the seals on his own suit. "It means we've hurt him," Rhaera replied with grim satisfaction. "He's desperate now." They located the airlock leading to the exterior and began the cycling process. As the air pressure equalized, Leon felt a moment of pure panic. He was about to step onto the surface of an alien planet with minimal protection, hunted by his own commander, all to help someone he barely knew. But as he looked at Rhaera, standing tall despite everything she'd endured, he knew he'd made the right choice. Some things were worth the risk. The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing the barren landscape beyond. The planet's surface was a study in desolation, jagged rock formations stretching toward a sickly yellow sky sparse vegetation clinging stubbornly to the hostile terrain. In the distance, the environmental monitoring station was visible as a small, boxy structure atop a ridge. "That's our target," Rara said, her voice slightly distorted through the suit's communication system. 2 kilometers, rough terrain. "We need to move quickly." Leon nodded, checking the suit's oxygen levels. "These suits have about 4 hours of air. Should be enough, but we can't waste time." They stepped out onto the surface, the gravity slightly stronger than inside the base, making each step more laborious. The wind howled around them, carrying particles that pinged against their helmet visors. As they began their trek across the rocky terrain, Leon couldn't help but look back at the imposing structure of Base 7, his home for the past 3 years, now suddenly hostile territory. The irony wasn't lost on him. For beast folk like Rara, the base had always been a place of restriction and suspicion. "What happens if we succeed?" he asked as they navigated a particularly treacherous slope. "After you exposed Draven?" Rara was silent for a moment, focused on maintaining her footing on the loose scree. "Best case? The Alliance Council removes him and implements reforms. Beast folk get more rights, fewer restrictions. And worst case?" Her tail, awkwardly contained within the suit, twitched visibly. "Worst case, they bury the evidence, silence us, and nothing changes." "That's not very encouraging," Leon admitted. "Revolution rarely is," she replied. "But we have to try." They continued in silence, saving their breath for the difficult journey. The ridge seemed to grow no closer despite their steady progress, an optical illusion caused by the planet's unusual atmospheric conditions. After nearly an hour of grueling travel, they reached a small plateau that offered a moment's respite. Leon checked his suit's diagnostics, frowning at the oxygen readings. "My suit's losing pressure," he reported. "Nothing critical yet, but it's a slow leak." Rara moved closer, examining his suit with concern. "Can you find the source?" Leon ran a diagnostic, the suit's computer highlighting a small tear near the shoulder seam. "Must have happened when we were crawling through the ventilation system. The patch kit should hold it temporarily." He applied the emergency sealant, watching anxiously as the pressure stabilized. "It'll hold, but we need to move faster now. My oxygen won't last the full 4 hours." They pressed onward with renewed urgency, their path taking them through a narrow canyon where the wind howled with increased ferocity. The gusts buffeted them mercilessly, threatening to throw them off balance with each step. "Almost there," Rara encouraged as they emerged from the canyon to see the monitoring station now much closer. "Just a little further." Leon nodded, though his breathing had become labored. The patch on his suit was holding, but his oxygen levels were depleting faster than anticipated due to the exertion. They had just begun the final ascent to the ridge when a flash of movement caught Leon's attention. He turned to see a patrol skimmer emerging from the base, heading directly toward them. "We've got company," he warned, pointing to the approaching vehicle. Rara's pace quickened. "They must have tracked our suit signatures. Run." They abandoned caution, scrambling up the rocky slope toward the monitoring station. The skimmer was gaining rapidly, its superior speed a stark contrast to their laborious climb. "We're not going to make it," Leon gasped, his lungs burning with the effort. "Yes, we are," Rara insisted, grabbing his arm to help pull him along. "I didn't come this far to fail now, and neither did you." They reached the station just as the skimmer landed at the base of the ridge. For armored security, officers disembarked, weapons drawn as they began their pursuit. Rara overrode the station's access panel with a security card she'd taken from the guard earlier. The door slid open, allowing them to stumble inside before it sealed behind them. "That won't hold them for long," Leon warned as they quickly removed their helmets in the pressurized environment. The monitoring station was small and utilitarian. A single room filled with atmospheric analysis equipment, basic life support systems, and a communications array. More importantly, it contained a small emergency transport vessel designed for evacuating personnel in case of environmental emergencies. "Can you pilot that?" Rara asked, nodding toward the transport. Leon examined the controls. "It's similar to the maintenance shuttles I've worked on." Basic controls, pre-programmed navigation system. Should be manageable. Good, Rara said, moving to the communications array. I need to transmit the shard data before we leave. Leon began the transport startup sequence, while Rara worked quickly to establish a secure connection. Outside, they could hear the security team attempting to override the door locks. How long do you need? Leon asked, watching the transport systems come online one by one. 3 minutes to establish the connection, another 2 to transmit, Rara replied, her fingers moving deftly across the interface. Can you buy me that time? Leon nodded grimly, moving to the station's security controls. I'll try to slow them down. He activated the station's external defense systems, designed to repel wildlife, not humans, but it might delay the security team. Then he sealed the inner doors, creating additional barriers. Connection established, Rara announced. Beginning data transfer. A loud bang echoed through the station as the security team began forcing the outer door. 2 minutes remaining, Rara called out, her tail lashing anxiously as the data transfer progressed. Leon reinforced the inner doors, using his technical knowledge to reroute power away from the external access controls. It wouldn't stop the security team forever, but it might give them the precious minutes they needed. Transport's ready, he reported, returning to the small vessel. As soon as the data's transmitted, we need to go. The banging intensified, accompanied by the sound of cutting tools being applied to the outer door. 1 minute, Rara said, her eyes fixed on the progress bar crawling across the screen. Leon took a moment to really look at her, this fierce, determined Beastwoman who had quite literally crashed into his life. Despite the danger, despite everything they'd been through, he couldn't bring himself to regret helping her. There was something about her courage, her unwavering commitment to her cause, that resonated with him on a fundamental level. 90% complete, Rara announced, just as the outer door gave way with a screech of tortured metal. Time to go, Leon urged, grabbing her arm. Not yet, she insisted, refusing to budge. Almost there, the security team poured into the outer chamber, immediately beginning work on the inner doors. Leon could hear their voices, urgent and angry, as they prepared to breach the final barrier. Transmission complete. Rara finally exclaimed, a note of triumph in her voice. She disconnected the shard and joined Leon at the transport. They sealed themselves inside the small vessel, just as the inner doors began to give way. Leon's hands flew over the controls, initiating the emergency launch sequence. Hold on, he warned as the transport's engines roared to life. The vessel shot out of its docking bay, just as the security team breached the inner doors. Through the viewport, Leon caught a glimpse of Commander Draven himself, his face contorted with rage as he watched their escape. The transport accelerated away from the monitoring station, its autopilot engaging to maintain a stable course. Only then did Leon allow himself to breathe, slumping back in the pilot's seat. We did it, he said, almost unable to believe it. We actually did it. Rara's relief was palpable, her usual composure giving way to a smile that transformed her features. The data is transmitted. Even if they catch us now, the Alliance Council has the evidence. Where to next? Leon asked, reviewing the transport's navigation options. There's an outpost beyond the northern mountains, Rara suggested. Beast folk sympathizers. They can hide us until the Council acts on the evidence. Leon programmed the coordinates, watching as the transport adjusted its course. The vessel was small, designed for short journeys rather than lengthy expeditions, but it would get them to the outpost. As the adrenaline of their escape began to fade, Leon became acutely aware of his exhaustion. Every muscle ached, his eyes burned, and a throbbing headache was developing behind his temples. You should rest, Rara said, noticing his condition. The autopilot will alert us if there's any pursuit. We have a few hours before we reach the outpost. Leon didn't have the energy to argue. He reclined his seat as far as it would go in the cramped cabin, his eyelids growing heavy. Wake me if anything happens, he murmured, already drifting toward unconsciousness. The last thing he saw before sleep claimed him was Rara's amber eyes watching over him, filled with something that might have been gratitude, or perhaps something more. When Leon awoke, the landscape outside the viewport had changed dramatically. Gone were the barren, rocky plains. In their place stood towering mountain ranges, their peaks lost in swirling clouds. The transport was navigating a winding valley, following a course that kept them close to the terrain and hidden from orbital surveillance. "How long was I out?" he asked, straightening in his seat. "About 3 hours," Rara replied. She looked tired but alert, her gaze fixed on the viewport. No sign of pursuit so far. Leon checked the transport systems. "Fuel's running low. We'll make it to the outpost, but not much farther." "It's enough," Rara assured him. "The outpost has supplies, transportation. We can plan our next move from there." Leon was silent for a moment, contemplating what next move meant for him. Less than 24 hours ago, he had been an ordinary technician with an ordinary life. Now he was a fugitive, fleeing with stolen military data alongside a Beastwoman he barely knew. "Why did you trust me?" he asked suddenly. "Back in my quarters. You could have knocked me out, forced me to help you. Why trust me instead?" Rara turned to face him, her expression thoughtful. "I didn't at first, but then I saw how you handled my tale, carefully, even though you were scared and confused. Most humans wouldn't care if they hurt a Beastwoman." Leon remembered the moment, the sleek black tail caught in his door, his instinctive gentleness despite his shock. "It was nothing," he said, slightly embarrassed. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Rara said with certainty. "They wouldn't. That's why I trusted you." Small moments reveal true character. Before Leon could respond, an alarm blared from the navigation console. Red warning lights flashed across the display. "What is it?" Rara asked, instantly alert. Leon studied the readouts, his heart sinking. "Pursuitkraft. Military grade. 3 of them, coming in fast from the base. How long until they reach us?" 10 minutes, maybe less, Leon replied grimly. This transport wasn't built for speed or evasion. Rara leaned forward, examining the terrain ahead. The valley narrows about 2 kilometers ahead. The mountains create a natural bottleneck. If we can reach it, we might be able to lose them in the canyon system beyond. Leon adjusted their course, pushing the transport's engines to their limits. The small vessel shuddered with the strain, but responded to his commands. "We're not going to outrun them," he warned. "Best we can hope for is to reach that canyon before they get a weapons lock." The transport hurtled through the valley, skimming dangerously close to the rocky terrain. Behind them, the pursuit craft were gaining steadily, their superior speed allowing them to close the gap with alarming rapidity. 1 minute to the canyon, Leon announced, his knuckles white on the controls. A warning tone indicated that one of the pursuit craft had achieved weapons lock. Leon executed a series of evasive maneuvers, using the terrain to break the lock temporarily. "Hang on," he shouted as they approached the narrow entrance to the canyon. The transport shot into the gap just as the lead pursuit craft fired. The energy blast struck the mountainside above them, sending a cascade of rocks tumbling down. Leon wrenched the controls, barely avoiding the avalanche that partially blocked the entrance behind them. "That should slow them down," Rara observed, watching as the pursuit craft pulled up to avoid the falling debris. The canyon was treacherous, narrow passages, sharp turns, and natural rock formations that jutted into their path without warning. Leon guided the transport with intense concentration, relying on instincts honed through years of maintenance flying. "They're still coming," Rara reported, monitoring the sensors. 2 of them made it through the blockage. "We're almost out of fuel," Leon replied tensely. "We won't make it to the outpost like this." Rara pointed to a narrow side passage. "There, that crevice might be too small for their ships. If we can reach it." Leon didn't hesitate, banking the transport sharply toward the opening. It was indeed narrow, barely wider than their vessel. The transport scraped against the rock walls as they entered, sending sparks flying past the viewport. "Cut the engines," Rara suggested. "We have enough momentum to glide through. If they can't detect our power signature, they might pass us by." Leon complied, shutting down all non-essential systems. The transport coasted silently through the narrow passage, eventually emerging into a small, enclosed canyon. High walls surrounded them on all sides, with only a sliver of the yellow sky visible far above. They waited in tense silence, listening as the pursuit craft roared past their hiding place. Minutes stretched like hours until finally, the sound of engines faded into the distance. "They missed us," Leon whispered, hardly daring to believe their luck. Rhaera's relief was evident in the relaxation of her ears, which had been flattened against her head during their escape. "For now, but we can't stay here. They'll double back eventually." Leon assessed their situation. "The transport's damaged from the rock scrapes. We got minimal fuel left. Even if we could leave this canyon, we wouldn't get far. Then we go on foot," Rhaera decided. "The outpost is still only about 20 kilometers from here. Difficult terrain, but manageable." Leon checked the transport supplies. "We have 2 environment suits, emergency rations, basic medical kit. Not ideal, but enough to make the journey." They gathered what they could carry and prepared to abandon the transport. As they donned their environment suits once more, Leon caught Rhaera, watching him with an unreadable expression. "What is it?" he asked. "You could stay with the transport," she said quietly. "When they find it, you could claim I forced you to help me. You'd face discipline, but not the charges of treason they'll bring against me. You could still have a life." The offer surprised Leon, but his response surprised him even more. "No," he said firmly. "I'm not abandoning you now. We're in this together, remember?" Something flickered in Rhaera's amber eyes. Gratitude, perhaps, or something deeper. She nodded once, her tail swishing behind her. Together, she agreed. They left the transport hidden in the canyon and began the arduous journey toward the outpost. The terrain was challenging. Steep inclines, unstable rock formations, and sparse vegetation that offered little cover. They moved cautiously, staying close to the canyon walls where the shadows were deepest. As they walked, Leon found himself studying Rhaera's movements. Despite the awkward environment suit, she moved with natural grace, her feet finding secure purchase where he struggled for balance. There was an efficiency to her movements, a harmony with her surroundings that humans like him had long lost. "What will you do?" he asked during a brief rest. "After all this is over, I mean." Rhaera gazed out at the hostile landscape, her expression contemplative. "I've never thought beyond exposing Draven. My whole focus has been on getting the evidence, proving what he's done." "There must be something you want for yourself," Leon pressed gently. She was silent for a long moment. "Freedom," she said finally. "Not just the absence of restrictions, but true freedom. To go where I choose, to live as I wish, without being seen as lesser because of what I am." The simplicity and power of her desire struck Leon deeply. He had taken his own freedom for granted, complaining about base regulations or duty rosters while never experiencing the systemic prejudice that Rhaera and her people faced. "Daily, you'll have that," he promised, though he had no real power to ensure it. "The evidence will change things." Rhaera's smile was small but genuine. "Perhaps. Change comes slowly, but it does come." They continued their journey as the planet's sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain. The temperature dropped rapidly with the approaching night, their suit heaters working overtime to maintain comfortable conditions. "We should find shelter for the night," Leon suggested as darkness fell. "It's too dangerous to navigate this terrain without proper light." Rhaera nodded in agreement, her night vision better than his, but still limited in the absolute darkness of the planet's night. They located a shallow cave in the canyon wall, its entrance partly concealed by fallen rocks. Inside, they established a small camp, using the transport's emergency lights to illuminate the space. The cave was dry and relatively warm, offering protection from both the elements and potential pursuit. They shared a meal of emergency rations, bland but nutritious tablets designed to provide maximum caloric intake with minimal resources. Leon winced at the chalky taste. "Not exactly gourmet dining," he joked weakly. "Better than starving," Rhaera replied pragmatically, though her nose wrinkled in distaste. With the meal finished, they settled down to rest, positioning themselves near the cave entrance where they could monitor any approach. The silence between them was comfortable now, the shared danger having forged a connection neither had anticipated. "Tell me about your home," Leon said, breaking the quiet. "Not the base, your real home." Rhaera's expression softened with memory. "My people come from a forest world, dense canopies, rivers that run clear as crystal. We live in harmony with our environment, building dwellings that blend with the natural landscape." "It sounds beautiful," Leon said sincerely. "It was," she agreed, a note of sadness entering her voice. "Before the human mining corporations came. Now much of it is gone. The forests cut down, the rivers polluted. That's why many of us left, seeking work and new lives elsewhere." "I'm sorry," Leon offered, feeling the inadequacy of the words. Rhaera shook her head. "Don't apologize for things you didn't do. Individual guilt helps no one. Collective action for change, that matters." They lapsed into silence again, the weight of their conversation settling between them. Outside, the wind howled through the canyon, a mournful sound that emphasized their isolation. Leon found himself watching Rhaera as she gazed out into the darkness. The emergency light cast her profile in sharp relief. The elegant line of her jaw, the pointed ears that occasionally twitched at distant sounds, the subtle play of muscles beneath her fur. She turned suddenly, catching him staring. Rather than look away in embarrassment, he held her gaze. Something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of their unlikely alliance, the trust that had grown from necessity into something more genuine. "You should sleep," she said softly. "I'll take first watch." Leon wanted to protest, but exhaustion was pulling at him relentlessly. "Wake me in 4 hours," he said instead. "You need rest too." Rhaera nodded, her amber eyes reflecting the dim light as Leon settled onto the hard cave floor. Despite the discomfort, sleep claimed him quickly, his body demanding recovery from the day's exertions. He dreamed of running through endless corridors, Rhaera's tail always just disappearing around the next corner, always out of reach. Behind him, Draven's voice echoed with threats and accusations. He woke with a start when a hand touched his shoulder. "Leon," Rhaera whispered. "Wake up. There's something outside." Instantly alert, Leon sat up, straining his ears. At first, he heard nothing beyond the persistent wind. Then he caught it, a faint mechanical whirring, distinct from any natural sound. "Drone," he whispered back. "Search pattern." They're methodically scanning the canyon. They retreated deeper into the cave, extinguishing the emergency light. In the absolute darkness, Leon felt Rhaera's hand find his, guiding him safely over the uneven floor. The whirring grew louder as the drone approached their hiding place. They pressed themselves against the back wall of the cave, hardly daring to breathe. A beam of light swept across the cave entrance, probing the darkness. For a heart-stopping moment, the light lingered at the entrance, as if the drone's operators sensed their presence. Then, mercifully, it moved on, continuing its search elsewhere. "That was close," Leon breathed once the sound had faded. "Too close," Rhaera agreed. "They know we're in this area. We need to move before dawn." "Moving at night is dangerous," Leon cautioned. "The terrain. Staying here is more dangerous," Rhaera countered. "Your people will have thermal imaging, motion sensors. The night gives us some advantage. They'll expect us to wait until daylight." Leon couldn't argue with her logic. "All right, give me a minute to check our suits." They prepared to move out, checking their oxygen levels and sealing their helmets. The night outside was absolute. The planet's moons hidden behind thick cloud cover, the stars obscured by the atmosphere. Only their suit lights provided illumination, narrow beams cutting through the darkness. "Keep the lights low," Rhaera advised. "Use them only when necessary." They set out, moving slowly but steadily along the canyon floor. The terrain was treacherous, loose rocks, sudden drops, narrow passages that forced them to proceed single file. Rhaera took the lead, her natural agility and superior night vision making her the logical choice. They had covered perhaps 5 kilometers when the canyon began to widen, opening into a broader valley. In the distance, faint lights were visible, artificial illumination that stood out against the natural darkness. The outpost, Leon asked hopefully. Rhaera studied the lights, her head tilted in concentration. No, too organized, too bright. Military encampment. Leon's heart sank. They've set up a perimeter. They must know the outpost is our destination. We need to go around, Rhaera decided. There's higher ground to the east. If we can reach it, we might be able to circle behind them. The climb was grueling, steep, unstable, and dangerous in the darkness. Several times, rocks gave way beneath their feet, sending cascades of debris down the slope. Each time, they froze, listening for any indication that the noise had attracted attention. Near the top, Leon's foot slipped on a loose stone. He fell backwards, tumbling several meters down the slope before managing to arrest his descent by grabbing a protruding rock. The impact drove the air from his lungs, leaving him gasping. Rhaera was at his side in an instant, her strong hands helping him regain his footing. "Are you hurt?" she asked, concern evident even through the helmet's communication system. Leon took stock of his condition. "Bruised," he admitted, "but nothing broken. The suit protected me." He glanced down at his suit, noticing a new tear in the material near his knee. "Except for that," he added grimly. "Another leak." They patched the tear as best they could, but both knew the suit's integrity was now seriously compromised. Leon's oxygen would deplete much faster than planned. "We need to reach the outpost quickly," Rhaera said, stating the obvious. "Can you continue?" Leon nodded, pushing himself upright despite the pain. "No choice, is there?" They reached the top of the ridge, gaining a vantage point over the valley below. The military encampment was clearly visible now. Temporary structures, perimeter lighting, and the dark shapes of patrol vehicles moving methodically through the area. "They're thorough," Leon observed. "Standard search grid pattern. They'll comb every meter of this region. But they're focused on the valley floor," Rhaera pointed out. "We can use the high ground to our advantage." They moved along the ridge, keeping low to avoid silhouetting themselves against the night sky. The path was narrow and exposed, with little cover should they be spotted. Progress was slow but steady. By the time the first hints of dawn lightened the eastern sky, they had circled around the military encampment and were approaching the outpost from the opposite direction. The outpost itself was well hidden, built into the side of a mountain, its exterior designed to blend with the natural rock formations. Only small, shielded lights around what appeared to be an entrance gave any indication of human habitation. "How do we approach?" Leon asked, studying the outpost through his helmet visor. "They'll have security systems, especially with the military so close." "They'll recognize me," Rhaera assured him. "The outpost is maintained by beast folk sympathizers, humans and beast folk working together for change." They made their final approach as dawn broke fully over the mountains. Leon's suit was losing pressure steadily now, the patches unable to fully contain the leaks. His breathing had become labored, each step requiring conscious effort. They were within 100 meters of the entrance when floodlights suddenly illuminated them from multiple directions. Figures emerged from concealed positions, weapons raised. "Halt!" A voice commanded through an amplified speaker. "Identify yourselves." Rhaera stepped forward, removing her helmet with deliberate movements. "I am Rhaera, daughter of Shunare. I carry evidence of crimes against both our peoples." There was a pause, then one of the figures approached cautiously. As it drew nearer, Leon could see it was another Beastwoman, though of a different species from Rhaera, her features more canine than feline. "Rhaera," the newcomer said, lowering her weapon. "We received word you might be coming. And your companion." "A friend," Rhaera said simply. "One who risked everything to help me. He needs medical attention." Leon removed his own helmet, the planet's toxic atmosphere immediately burning his throat and eyes. He coughed violently, his vision blurring. The last thing he remembered was strong arms catching him as his legs gave way, and Rhaera's voice, urgent and concerned, calling his name. Leon awoke in a small, dimly lit room, lying on a narrow bed. His chest felt tight, and his throat burned with each breath. He tried to sit up, only to be gently pushed back by a firm hand. Easy, a deep voice cautioned. The toxin exposure was significant. Your body needs time to recover. As his vision cleared, Leon saw a beast folk with distinctly ursine features examining a medical readout beside the bed. The doctor, for that was clearly his role, nodded with satisfaction. Better, he pronounced. Your oxygen saturation is improving. Another day of treatment, and you should be able to move around. Rara, Leon asked, his voice raspy. Your companion is fine, the doctor assured him. She's meeting with the Outpost Council. The evidence you brought has caused quite a stir. Leon relaxed slightly, relief washing over him. How long was I out? Nearly 18 hours, the doctor replied. The atmosphere exposure, combined with your previous exertions, pushed your body to its limits. You were fortunate to reach us when you did. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. The doctor called out permission to enter, and the door swung open to reveal Rara. Her appearance had changed. She was cleaned up, wearing fresh clothing, her fur groomed to a glossy sheen. She looked more rested, though her eyes still held the wariness that seemed inherent to her nature. You're awake, she said, a smile spreading across her features. Good. I was worried. The doctor excused himself, leaving them alone. Rara approached the bed, perching carefully on its edge. The doctor says you'll recover fully, she told him. No permanent damage. Lucky me, Leon said with a weak smile. What about the data? The evidence against Draven? Transmitted to the Alliance Council, Rara confirmed. They've already convened an emergency session. Draven has been recalled to Central Command to answer questions. Leon felt a surge of satisfaction. Then it worked. We did it. We did, Rara agreed, her tail swishing with what appeared to be contentment. The Council here has already received word that the Alliance is sending investigators to the base. Change is coming, Leon. Real change. He studied her face, seeing the hope there, the cautious optimism. And you? What happens to you now? Something flickered in her amber eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps. I've been offered a position here, working with the Outpost security team. It's good work, important work. You're staying, then, Leon said, trying to keep the disappointment from his voice. Rara hesitated, her ears flicking forward then back, a sign of inner conflict. I haven't decided yet. There are other considerations. Before Leon could ask what she meant, the door opened again. A human woman entered, her bearing military despite her civilian clothing. Excuse the interruption, she said briskly, but we've received new intelligence. The Alliance forces are engaging with elements loyal to Draven. The base is in lockdown, but there's a faction attempting to destroy evidence and evacuate key personnel. Rara stood immediately. Where's Draven? That's the problem, the woman replied grimly. He's escaped the base in a military shuttle. Our sources indicate he's heading toward the jump point with critical data. He's running, Leon realized, pushing himself to a sitting position despite the pain in his chest. Cutting his losses. Worse, the woman corrected. He's taking technology and coordinates that could allow space pirates to bypass Alliance defenses. If he reaches the jump point, he'll disappear into uncharted space with information that could endanger thousands of lives. Rara's expression hardened. We need to intercept him. The outpost has one vessel capable of the pursuit, the woman acknowledged. But our pilot is injured. The atmospheric storms damaged his optic nerves yesterday. Leon saw the direction of the conversation immediately. I can pilot, he offered. I've flown similar vessels during my training. Both women turned to look at him. Rara with surprise, the human with skepticism. You're injured, Rara pointed out. Barely recovered from toxin exposure. And Draven is my commanding officer, Leon countered. My responsibility. Besides, you'll need someone who knows military protocols to bypass his security systems. The human woman studied him thoughtfully. It will be dangerous. Draven won't surrender without a fight. Nothing about the last 48 hours has been safe, Leon replied dryly. What's one more risk? The woman nodded. Sharply. I'll have the vessel prepared. Can you be ready in 30 minutes? He'll be ready, Rhaera answered before Leon could speak. We both will. After the woman left, Rhaera turned to Leon with a mixture of exasperation and admiration. You should be resting. Probably, he agreed, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. A wave of dizziness hit him, but he pushed through it. But I'm not letting you face Draven alone. Rhaera's expression softened. Why you care so much? This isn't your fight. Leon met her gaze steadily. It became my fight the moment your tail got stuck in my door. A smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. That was not my finest moment. I don't know, Leon mused, returning her smile. It worked out pretty well in the end. With Rhaera's help, Leon managed to dress and make his way to the outpost launch bay. The vessel awaiting them was sleek and powerful, a modified scout ship designed for speed rather than comfort. Its weapon systems were minimal but effective, meant for defense rather than assault. The human woman, who introduced herself as Captain Laris, briefed them quickly. Draven has about an hour's head start. His shuttle is faster than this vessel in open space, but he has to navigate the asteroid field at the edge of the system. That's where you might catch him. Any word from the Alliance forces? Rhaera asked as they prepared to board. They're dispatching interceptors, but they won't reach the jump point in time, Laris replied. You're our best hope of stopping him. Leon settled into the pilot's seat, his hands moving automatically over the familiar controls. Despite the differences from the vessels he'd flown before, the basic principles were the same. Rhaera took the co-pilot position, her eyes scanning the readouts with practiced ease. You've flown before, Leon observed as they prepared for launch. My father taught me, she confirmed. Before the changes on our world. The vessel's engines hummed to life, a reassuring vibration that traveled through the deck plates. Leon completed the pre-flight checks, his training overriding the lingering effects of his injury. Ready? He asked Rhaera. Her amber eyes met his, determination evident in their depths. Ready. The launch was smooth, the vessel responding beautifully to Leon's touch on the controls. They accelerated away from the outpost, climbing rapidly through the atmosphere. The planet fell away beneath them, its hostile surface transformed into a strangely beautiful panorama of rugged terrain and swirling clouds. Once clear of the atmosphere, Leon increased power to the main engines. The stars blurred slightly as they accelerated to maximum speed, heading toward the system's outer reaches where the asteroid field marked the approach to the jump point. Sensors detecting a vessel ahead, Rhaera reported, studying the navigation display. Matches the profile of a military shuttle. Distance, 3 million kilometers, and closing. That's him, Leon confirmed, making minor adjustments to their course. We're gaining on him, but slowly. He'll reach the asteroid field before we can intercept in open space. They settled in for the pursuit, the vessel's engines pushing to their limits. Leon monitored the systems carefully, aware that they were operating at maximum capacity for longer than recommended. As they approached the asteroid field, Rhaera established a communication channel. Outpost vessel to military shuttle, she broadcast. Commander Draven, this is Rhaera. Your actions have been reported to the Alliance Council. Surrender your vessel and return to face judgment. There was a long pause before the response came, Draven's voice cold and contemptuous. The beast speaks as if it has authority. How amusing. Leon took the communication controls. Commander Draven, this is Technician Leon Reeves. You're charged with treason against the Alliance. Power down.